and you're listening to Candidate Conversations on the WIDU radio network. I'm your host, Jay Reinstein, and today I have with me Justin Dews, running for U.S. Senate as a Democrat. Welcome to Candidate Conversations, Justin.
Hey, Jay. Appreciate you guys having me on here and excited to have the opportunity to chat with you.
Great. If you could just tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself, why you're running, and we'd love to hear that.
Sure. Born and raised in Ohio. Grandparents were dairy farmers. My dad was a welder. Small little, Midwestern town. Joined the Marine Corps when I was 18. Spent the next 10 years, in the infantry, sort of growing up. And then in 2015, I came down to North Carolina for a job, and I've been here ever since, raising my family. So 4 kids, 3 dogs. And for the better part of the past 10 years, I've been working 2 full-time jobs. So that is part of the reason why I'm running for office now, is because I think the American dream is a little bit out of reach, a lot of bit out of reach for the youngest generation. But, sort of bounced around different corporate roles, from startups to big corporate conglomerates. So I've seen big business, I've seen, military, and so can kind of push back on the traditional, corruption that goes on in those arenas.
Yeah, well, you have your hands very full there, Justin. So what do you think the single biggest issue, or one of the biggest issues facing North Carolinians right now, and what would you do about it in your first year if elected to the Senate?
Sure. I think affordability is at the top of the list for almost everyone, because 60% of America is living paycheck to paycheck. So the top of the list for me is pushing towards living wages, and MIT research has shown that to be around $30 an hour. So pushing for something I put on my website, not only is it the math, but the plan to get to $30 an hour by 2030, and then moving, the U.S., or really joining the rest of the world with universal health care or a single-payer system, because we're the only developed nation in the world right now that doesn't have that, and we're now living, I think, about 8 years shorter than, some of our peer nations. So living wages, universal health care where there's no out-of-pocket expenses, I think those would be massively helpful. And then housing affordability, that's a more complex issue, because you've got zoning issues, you've got inventory issues, you've got corporate and private equity ownership inside of residential, right? So there's lots of issues there, but there are ways to tackle that as well. So those affordability, sort of that umbrella of affordability is the priority, and I've sort of put that as a pillar of what I'm running on, an acronym that spells ACT. So A is affordability, C is corruption, and T is together.
Great. Thank you. Excellent. So Washington, as you know, and I just watch it on TV, read it in the papers, is more divided than ever. How would you work with people you strongly disagree with across the aisle to deliver results for our state of North Carolina?
Sure. I think that's the problem, is the system has become so divisive now that there's no benefit, no legislation that's being passed for the benefit of the masses. And so, again, I want to prove that as a working class advocate, without raising a bunch of money, that you can get to office and make change. And really, I'm really an independent at heart, and I think if we can get more folks to understand that, I learned this in the Marine Corps, a 70% solution now is better than 100% solution never. So, right, we can't play this as like team sports where your team always has to win or the other team always has to lose. Like that's not working for us. So compromise is huge. I'm not going to toe the party line. I'm going to go off of what's morally and ethically right. And so that's part of the reason I've laid everything out on my website
and share that website. I'll ask you to do that several times. Throw that out to our listeners.
Sure. Yeah. It's justicewithdues.org. And that's part of what, I don't know if we'll talk about this later, but, Roy Cooper's obviously the heavyweight in the fight, but, he's got $15 million in his war chest, but he doesn't have a single policy or issue laid out on his website. And on the flip side, I've raised less than $5,000 and have every single, policy and issue laid out. And not just identifying the problems, but coming with creative solutions. I think that's important because, not everything's binary, not everything's black and white. And so coming with new information, new perspectives to solve old problems is the approach I'm trying to take.
Great. Again, we're talking to Justin Dews, running for U.S. Senate as a Democrat. How will you balance the national party priorities with the specific needs of the North Carolina voters? Anything you could, please share that with us.
I think they overlap significantly, not only in the affordability issues, but, tackling the corruption that is. So if you look at things like gerrymandering, that's part of the reason North Carolina can elect a Democratic governor, but 10 or 11 out of 14 congressional districts will go red because of gerrymandering. And so, having the goal of a constitutional amendment to ban the use of partisan gerrymandering and have independent redistricting commissions, that across the nation will just stop allowing both parties to abuse the map drawing, which I don't think our founders foresaw, and we could get back to, I would say, a more boring politics. And you don't, you have open primaries, you have ranked choice voting, and you just make the process less, divisive, less volatile. And again, this, democracy is still an experiment, and so we can improve upon it. We just need to have the willpower to do so.
Great. Thank you. Again, talking to Justin Dews, running for U.S. Senate as a Democrat. Many voters feel the system works for insiders and not everyday people. How would your election to office change that? What could you do to possibly make folks feel that their vote really counts?
Yeah. Getting to office as an underdog, that I would say the typical Senate race is in the millions in terms of what each candidate raises, which I think is sad that our democracy has come down to like who can beg for the most money. And it just doesn't feel morally right to me to do so, especially at a hard economic time. And so I don't want to be the standard politician. I want to be accountable to the people. And so, everyone that sort of reaches out to me, whether it's an organization or an individual, trying to be as, open and honest as possible is sort of, what I'm trying to take into this.
Great. Thank you. If someone is still undecided, what should they know about you that sets you apart from your opponent? And really, why should folks vote for Justin Dews for U.S. Senate as a Democrat?
Yes, sir. I'd say the biggest things that set me apart is the working class background. I'm not a career politician. I'm not an attorney. I'm a veteran. I've worked, like I said, multiple full-time jobs on top of each other. So this affordability issue is not, it's my lived experience, and I understand that, now with 4 children of my own, 2 of them that are about to be out of the house, right? Like the next generation has an even steeper hill to climb than ours did. And And then two, my military service, spending 10 years in the infantry, during, the Iraq and Afghanistan war, showed me that supporting the troops is really, really supporting defense contractors. And some of the best guys I ever knew didn't get a chance to come back and have an impact on society here in the U.S. Because they went and fought a war that they knew nothing about. So I can stand up, I feel like, to the military-industrial complex. We don't need to be spending $1 trillion a year on basically war and destruction. We need to reprioritize. I'm not going to take corporate money, not taking PAC money. I'm really not even asking for donations. I'm just asking for people to spread the word and ask folks to show up at the primary, research your candidates, and vote for the person they think is going to, to advocate on their behalf. And I think that's myself.
That's great. Again, thank you for your service, which 10 years is a long time. We appreciate that. Again, let's hear your website again, so folks, spell it out for folks.
Yes,
if
sir.
you can.
Justice with Dues, JUSTICEWITHDUES.org.
Great. Thank you so much. Again, we've been talking to Justin Dews, running for U.S. Senate as a Democrat. We appreciate you being on Candidate Conversations today, Justin.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate the opportunity.
And you've been listening to Candidate Conversations on the WIDU network. Until next time, have yourselves a great day.